welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode, a new season of the Serene View. And again, we are doing constructive arguments. And today, I am delighted to have with me Abhishek Sehgal. If I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly live on air, this is the time to correct me. He's the CEO of iDream. He's been one of these really inspirational entrepreneurs out to change the world. I will leave him to tell you the story. All I can say is I I brought him on to do this because I think he's one of the smartest people I have met. And he will also tell you that he's one of the smartest people he has met. So, would you like to introduce yourself? Come.
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm a bit of an exaggerated person on the smartness by Serene, but a bit of a background. I basically deal with as with iDream. We're just working on cool technologies to make eye care accessible to everyone. But beyond that, yes, I do have some opinions on today's debate, but I think we can form and argue against each other and hopefully come to a conclusion where we can agree with each other by the end of this podcast. So, Serene, I'll let you lead the conversation a bit. Let's see how that goes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So today we are going to talk about whether Biden is actually worse than Trump. Now, because this is a new season of the Serene View and of constructive argument, I really want to have my mind changed, right? Like in my mind, Trump will forever be tied to the Simpsons, right? Like, oh my goodness, comedy, biting comedy has come true. And
Yes.
yet, Abhishek is here to convince me that actually but Biden is even worse. Yes, so I will let you to have the opening salvo. And for those of you who are listening to us, right, like just drop your comments, like drop whatever you want to say into your comments, and I'll read it out for you. Yes, so go. Like, in what way is Biden worse?
Before I get into controversy, I'll just do a disclaimer. I don't support Trump or Biden, and it has nothing to do with my business. But let's just jump into it. First things first, I view presidents from a very statistical point of view. And in my perspective, Trump has a good bar to start with by looking at whether a president has started any stupid wars. Now, Biden has, during his vice presidency, started stupid wars. Even during now, if you look at the Afghanistan crisis, how he exited the crisis shows a level of incompetency unheard of. And while Trump is also slightly incompetent, my main argument would be he's not as incompetent as Biden in relative context. So this is my opening salvo that he did not start any stupid wars. That's a good marker to start off with.
Well, I will say, okay, that neither did Trump, right? I mean, so neither did Biden, right? He didn't start any stupid wars. If anything, he got America out of a stupid war, right? He decided that, okay, we're not going to play this game anymore. We're not going to, fight stupid wars and get out, right? Um,
Well,
so
he
I have a
did.
comment here. I mean, I'm not sure what this means, but please, no, enlighten us. Tell us what is void. Yes, sorry, go on.
Yes. So let's look at, is Biden worse than Trump? Well, then the second metric would be inflation, right? If you look at how much printing Biden has gone under his presidency within such a short term, well, it scares me honestly because yes, Trump printed money too. That was an appropriate amount of printing to COVID response. But the amount Biden did, which is almost 40% in the circulation, now I might be wrong on the exact number, but it's around that digit. That's kind of really scary because anyone who understands inflation is a tax on the poor. And when you do that type of printing, at the end, the people who suffer the most are the lower class. And you can actually see this happening because in 1975, that's when they took the US off the gold standard. And that's when you could see the gap between the rich people and the poor people increasing rapidly. And that's because of the inflationary tax which was occurring. And this is what my biggest concern is. If Biden is so for the that's his agenda, right, for the lower the working class man, the poor people,
Well,
well
I'm
then why
going to interrupt you there and actually say that according to records, he's cut child poverty by half with the American Rescue Plan.
and
And he's
how did
kept
he
like small
do
businesses
that?
afloat, which is,
How did
kind
he
of
do
good.
that? Who stated
Sorry?
those facts? I would be very interested. What fact are you referring to that he cut that, and how can he claim to that? Like
Well, I
what?
mean, okay, so I can only say this that this is based on what I've read. The American Rescue Plan has cut poverty in half, and at the same time help small businesses. So, I
Hmm?
mean, I don't know whether this is like, you know, is it? I mean, do you have like statistics to prove against that you think it's not true?
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely not true because if
Okay.
you do look at it in a way, the plans which you might be talking is the relief package, right? Which he sent out. Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, yes. So the relief package, right? Like, I think 1.2 billion, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
Yeah. Is that the one you're referring to?
I think, okay, I can't say this, all right? So I can only say this that I think that is true because I'm, as you can imagine, not American, and I have been spending the last week boning up on American policies and laws, and I think this is what it is. That there is a rescue package of 1.2 million, and that has cut child poverty by a fair bit.
All right. Well, if that is the case, well, I don't believe that is factual in the sense that it was Biden who was responsible for those policies. He might have done it. So I just do not have enough knowledge on this. But from my understanding of what happened in Biden's economic plans and his stimulus was he gave away basically money to a lot of people, right? And how he's supporting that money again comes to he has printed a lot of money and he has just done that stimulus because he's again so giving more money than he has, right? If you think about a government, it's as a business, it's a horrible thing to do. And we're essentially what happens is you won't see it immediately those people might get out of poverty, but you will see that like when it actually starts to plan out that actually not really. That's he didn't really take anyone out of poverty. That might be just the recovery wave of COVID-19, and it might just be an inflationary bomb he might have dropped in the next 5 years, where these people will just go more into poverty than worse. Because if he didn't do the tax on the poor, then that would have worked really well. And then the second issue with Biden is really his hatred for Elon Musk, right? That gets me on a personal level as an entrepreneur. He's an obvious corrupt individual, and I can make that statement as a very factual basis if you consider his track record and how he invited the unions, right? Anyone with a union base, he basically invited them in, and that's GM and all of them, and then called GM the innovator in EV. I don't even know how you start to defend it. At least Trump said, yeah, he disagreed with Elon Musk on some cases, but at least he said that he's a special person we need to protect. Instead, Biden is like pushing him on the opposite side, like the tax issues, right? He forced on Elon Musk. Okay, he sold 10%. Now what? You can't, even if you liquidate the entire billionaire pool of US, you can't pay what you have spent, like, right, which you didn't have the money for. So it's quite interesting. And then if you then lead into the other bad economic policy, because I'll first focus on the economic side. Let's not focus on the social
Okay.
sides first.
So
So
while you're on that, I actually found that the one that I was talking about, this is the one, the American Families Plan, which is this is released by the White House, by the way. And it says that it will provide 161 million payments, up to 1,000 for a household, and it's
well, there
expected
you
to
go.
live more
It's
than
written
5
by
years
the
out of
White
poverty.
House. Now, how much do you trust things coming out of White House's mouth? They were saying that Afghanistan.
Look, I'm Singaporean. I trust the government. Hey,
You trust
hello.
the government.
We
You
trust the
trust the
government
government.
a
I
lot.
don't know who
Hey.
trusts. I'm a libertarian at heart, right? I don't know when I've heard any side say they trust the government last. And I think both sides can consent on one thing, and that's kind of saying that we do not trust the government because they have been blatantly lying to us the entire time, and it has provable lies.
No, but like if they said we are giving out 161 million payments, what do you think that would be a lie that they would actually not do it?
They will do it, but how they actually execute it, right? Like they said that right execution on the, I will keep saying the Afghanistan war because that really angered me. So they said that they will be fine, everyone will be fine. Third, we have a plan in place, we are going to take out all our equipment, there is no, Taliban is not even close to us, right? So what happened? Every single military expert warned against it who was on the ground, and they didn't listen. And the consequences here to see. Now it's the same here, right? Execution matters. You can say a lot of good things. The execution at the end is what will do it. And then the second part is, I just find it really hard to even understand what Biden is saying most of the time because his speeches are incoherent. At least with Trump, I got the gist of it. I could at least get the guy, right?
No, wait,
So
hang on. You found his speeches coherent?
I did.
Seriously, like, I read
Yes,
his tweets. I was like,
because
okay, I have no idea what
I'm
the guy's
sorry, but he
saying.
was more coherent. At least his words were pronounced. At least I could understand his agenda. Yeah, okay, build the wall is a bit inflammatory, but I got it. You want to build the wall, therefore you're on the border security side, right? I get that, right? But with Biden, he would say something, lose track of his mind, and it seems like he's showing signs of dementia, onset dementia, and that is really obvious to see. I do not want a president of the most powerful country in the world to have onset of dementia and be able to launch nuclear codes. Now, Trump couldn't launch nuclear codes, so it
No,
says
no. I mean, actually, after Trump, I really trusted the American security system, right? Because when Trump became
yes.
president, I bought a prepper's kit at home. Like, I live in Singapore. I bought a prepper's kit, okay? And
Well,
those
I
of you
like
have no
this
idea what is prepper.
here,
It's
right?
like prep for nuclear
If
wars and
not
stuff.
Trump, who else, right? Then you have Biden and Hillary, right? Hillary is the
No,
devil incarnation. If
no,
you see
but
her
4 years
track
we
record,
lived, right? So I don't think Biden is like gonna do anything that Trump can't do.
like look at track records here, right? Just in the presidency, yeah, Trump had a lot of bad mistakes, I admit that, and that's okay because at the end, overall, his agenda was had a vision to it, and his vision was implemented partially, and some of that was good, some of them was bad. He, for example, in Israeli, I really liked how a Republican in Israeli said, I support LGBTQ, right? He said that, and the media didn't highlight that, but he did say that, and he did want universal health care. If you actually look into his speech and his agendas, he tried to push that. So it was not like he was all bad. He did have those libertarian policies in place, right? Whereas with Biden, you see it, he's kind of hypocritical, right? He at the same time has this socioeconomic group he wants to support, but he's putting policies against that socioeconomic group. And maybe he just doesn't have a good grasp of economics because he's a career politician at the end of the day. But at the gist of it, the country is run on three basic facts, which is your international sway, how good you are in the global environment as of now. The second is economic, third is social. Trump was
No,
really
but
good at
I
economics.
think if you let's like pull it back one level, right? So international sway. Is there a less respected international leader than Trump? I mean, like in recent history,
I don't know
the,
what
the
you
kind of like
classify.
every time
Why
he turns
this
up,
is
right? The
this is
rest
what I
of the
don't get. Trump
G20
did
and
a
the way
lot of
that
things
they
internationally.
treat him.
So, Serene, you're thinking Trump didn't do things internationally. Think about it, right? He went to North Korea, the first president in US history in a very long time to go to North Korea, had de escalated that entire situation. You have to give dues where it is due, right?
No, no, no.
He,
I mean, they had a meeting here in Singapore. We know all about it. The meeting
yes,
was held here. No, but
yes,
but if you think about it, right? Like pulling out of Paris, pulling out the Paris Accord, going
because
like
it's
all
filled
the
with hypocrites. I am a big environmentalist, but I think the problems, there are much more serious problems to deal with, like plastic, right? I am very against plastic because microplastics go into your bloodstream, and from a health perspective, that's really bad for you, right? That's an immediate thing which we need to fix. And I just think the agenda has been politicized by every politician who wants to basically be this intellectual leader on environment policies and pull some agenda which just gets him votes, right? I think that has what it has developed into. It was a really good cause, and it
no,
just
but
was
I mean,
taken
I
out of
think he has
context.
actually come up to say that he doesn't believe in climate change. Trump has
Well,
actually said
then
it.
he's wrong.
Okay,
Then
look,
then
he
he's
he
wrong.
tweets enough that I can't remember when, but he's come up to say he doesn't believe in climate change. He has come up to say that this is all rubbish, and this is the reason why he pulled out of Paris. I like, the guy doesn't even trust it. And I think the kind of every time, I mean, I've seen the kind of treatment that he gets at G20, the acts of pulling his daughter into negotiate with world leaders. I kind of think, okay, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of overt show of disrespect. Like people are not treating him the way that they treated
That is
Obama, for example.
because Obama was a very good oratory person. He was really good at speeches. So while he bombed the hell out of the world, he was still considered like a Nobel Peace Prize kind like winner, right? So that happens because most of the people don't try to look into the deep facts of what's actually happening in the decision making and the consequences, the cause and effect. So I like Obama honestly, personally, but I would still support Trump on the same time because I think the alternatives are Hillary and Biden. Well, at least Trump has his agenda right on the economics. At least he fixed that up, and yeah, he might have done some bad jobs in that. And his oratory skills aren't really the best to go off on because he says a lot of hyperbole. He talks in hyperboles, right? That's who he is. He's a bit of a narcissist. We all know that. But at the same time, at least he has the drive and the personality and the character to do things. And as the most powerful country in the world, your leader needs to project power, and that's another point against Biden, right? And then if you look at the tax policies, right, basic economic principles aren't being followed in Biden's tax policy. He wants to increase tax, especially he wants to tax the rich for some reason. And this really hurts me personally because yes, I'm actually not rich right now. I'm actually very broke because I'm at the starting stage of a new enterprise.
Wait,
But
hang on. Are you against it because you will be rich and therefore you don't want this policy personally?
I
Hey, come
don't know.
on.
I'll be rich.
Just,
I will probably fail and go bankrupt. That is a real possibility in a startup. But you need to understand that when I went to US like 6 to 7 years ago, right? I went to US. I met people. I talked there. The culture there was when they saw someone rich in the street, you could feel that they inspired to be that person, and that's what attracted me towards United States, right? As an entrepreneur, I wanted to go and build a business in United States because they had this ambition that the successful people they got there through hard work, right? That they did
but
that, but right now the culture shift is going towards the
are
opposite
you
side.
Are you sure? Because I think, like I've been speaking to US business people, right, part of my work, and a lot of them are telling me that because the sheer amount of money that's coming into the economy, their businesses are doing well, they are able to reinvest, and especially in like the two big ones, right? One is of course the rescue plan, and then there is the infrastructure bill. All of that is going in. I mean, it's money going into the economy. Obviously, your point that he's like printing money and the runaway inflation. I take that is true. But on top of it, right? I mean, a lot of these people are benefiting. Businesses are benefiting. Put it that way, especially smaller businesses.
Are they? I don't see that happening with the riots in New
I mean,
York.
they tell me that there's a lot of money coming in, and they
This is
have
what we are
business
talking
where
about.
they didn't have before last year.
Because it depends.
Before,
Maybe we both are biased here because we have different business communities. But the business people I am talking to, they have been turned off from United States. For example, even my personal plan, because this is opinions at the end of the day. My personal plan was to go to New York, set up business there, and launch iDream there. But I got really turned off with the riots going on, and I talked to a lot of small business people there. Their shops were burned, and it was horrible for them. They got looted, and there was no control in there. The political correctness killed it because there were so many looters, and it was so politicized. And I can say this because I'm not from United States. From an outside perspective, it seems like a very scary place to do business right now because it's all agenda driven, and a lot of people I know moved to Florida, and they did
Are
that.
you
They
are
moved
you implying that United States has ever been not agenda driven? I mean, like
United
last year
States has
during
always
like
been
last year
agenda
we
driven,
had
right?
we had the
Even
Black Lives
now,
Matter. Even
for
during
example,
like
Nixon, right? You can think about Nixon, right? Nixon, it was more polarizing than it is now. It's hard to believe, but it was, right, at that time. So if you study history, so you realize America has been a lot polarized. It's just that only recently the shift I have seen in my lifetime, which I have seen, has been against this kind of business friendly environment, which was really, really nice there. Because if you think about it, who is getting hated on? again, I follow Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all of these billionaires, right? Well, they actually did. He launched the rockets, right? That's a really hard thing to do. United States was so incapable of doing that. I don't want to say incompetent, incapable of doing that, that they were paying Russia to get their space station people there and resupplies and all of that stuff, right? He did that, right? And
But
yet you're
I
hating
mean,
on that guy.
but the thing is that so he hits a couple of guys, right? I mean, I don't think that okay, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with his personal preference for people. Yes, I know maybe he hates these people, but that doesn't stand in the way of policy. Like the general
It does.
policy is
His
that he has
general
given a lot of
policy
money.
says,
He has
what is his
helped
general
COVID.
policy on taxation? Well, first, it's really difficult to even know what his opinion is, because it seems like most of the time he's just blumbering, right? So it's like really hard to even understand what he wants. But like once you see like his releases, right, press releases, you realize, oh well, he wants to tax the rich. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah,
What
yeah, yeah.
then? Okay,
That's a
you
very
have
left thing to do, isn't it? I mean, that's
no, it's
really a
not.
left thing to do,
I'm
right?
more
Very
than
left.
that's wrong way to think. A left that first, I don't like the categories of left and right. I think people are along the
No, but this
lines
is
of,
like tax the rich, benefit the poor, universal health care.
yeah, but
Everybody should get
how
that.
how
That's
how
very left.
so
I
you
mean, it's
tax
so
the
left.
rich.
It's almost like,
What do you do? Okay,
communist
so you
left,
have
right?
tax the rich. What do you do with that money? You don't have enough money. Even if you tax, okay, fine. Let's just put an entire socialist policy, because socialism is a very dangerous concept, because capitalism is the reason why we even have these technologies in the first place. So let's tax the rich, take all their money. Now what are you going to do with their money? Now you have given it to a corporation, because government is a corporation with monopoly on votes, and basically that. So now you have given it to a very inefficient corporation who has no incentive to use it efficiently. Now they have created a policy to do something, and they spend that money, right? Where do they spend it? What's his plan after that? Okay, you have collected the money. What's his plan? Infrastructure. Okay, what about infrastructure? Does he even know where in infrastructure he should be spending? Because I listen to a lot of podcasts that infrastructure needs repairing and all of those things. He's not even mentioned it once. He's mentioning supply chain, a buzzword, right? I don't think he even
Well,
understands
I
what
mean,
supply chain is.
what I've seen is bridges, roads. I mean, I'm reading it out as I tell
So
you,
who
right?
are
I
you
mean, look,
reading
I know
from?
you. I know you don't trust media, but this is the CNN, which I think you definitely
CNN?
don't trust.
Come on,
But,
like you're sourcing
and
CNN.
oh, I love CNN. Look, I mean, I've been watching CNN since the first Afghanistan war. I'm old, okay, but the thing is that look, what's in it? I mean, all I'm seeing is what's in it, right? Bridges, roads, infrastructure, transportation, climate change. Sounds good.
All right. So
Are you trying to argue that bridges will not be built, roads will not be done,
they are
there will
built on
not be any
every single
transportation?
presidency. They are built on every single president. Every single president goes and builds bridges and roads, because that's just part of the general system, right? So if you contribute that, like, oh my God, that's the bar. Like he built the bridge he was supposed to build in the infrastructure planning. That's his achievement. You hear,
No, it
right? Like
says that
it's
it
not
is
true.
the biggest bridge building project. The 40 billion is the single largest dedicated bridge investment
Just
since
like he's
1950s.
I guess he's also defending his 1994 crime bill, just like that, right? uh or like his 1988 presidential race for plagiarism, like this engine, like, he like used his own sons that for his own political gain in 2016. That's the guy you're trying to defend. Then he voted to gut welfare in 1990s. That's the history he's having. And then he also gave Obama classes racist backhand compliment, you know so voted to turn Glass-Steagall. I can keep going. The list of fuck ups, and it is fuck ups, Biden has done in his political history, and
Well,
even now he's doing.
I will say this, okay? I mean, look, I think I shouldn't say this as a non-American, but a lot of times as like a complete outsider, I look at your politicians and your political system, and I marvel, I really marvel at the kind of people who are that. Look, I'm not saying that ours is any like saints or anything, but I look at them and I go like, Oh wow! Are those the people
Exactly.
they have chosen? I mean, seriously, so I, I put it this way, right? Can you honestly say that, and there are other American politicians with as long a history as Biden who doesn't have all these like kind of black marks against his
Yes,
name?
there are lots of good politicians like that, and they never get voted in. And Trump has that's the argument isn't that Trump is the best you can get. The argument here is Trump is better than Biden, and that's very easily provable because just put the track records of both of them together in the political decision making, and even the first 100 days of Biden versus first 100 days of Trump. That's it. That's
Okay.
all you need to
No,
do.
no, tell us, because I mean, what I've seen is that he's come on and COVID has been like, that he's doing something about COVID for a start. There's more vaccinations. He is trying to help out the economy. And he's like done this infrastructure thing. I mean, no, written it into
Uh,
law. Not sure if it's going to be implemented well. I mean, he's pulled out Afghanistan. I will agree with you. It was horribly done. But if your standards is he should not start stupid wars, well, he's just ended a stupid war. But you are right that the way he handled it was horrible. I agree. You know.
okay.
And
So
so, what is it
how
about
it
the
works
100 days
is
that you want to
let's
like
look at it the
defend?
other way. Instead of me defending Trump, you defend Biden. Give me 1 point where he's better than Trump. 1 point, a single
No, no,
point.
I've just given you five, right? I mean, like, he's
What are the
actually
five
doing something
points?
about
Let's
COVID.
summarize
He's
those.
gone back to
Okay.
the Paris Accord. And
Okay.
also
So
the reason why.
your thing is saying that Paris Accord is good. That's your point. That you're saying, okay, he has gone back to Paris Accord. Thus, that's good.
I mean, he's gone back to international. I mean, there's a reason why there's just replaced Paris. I
So
can't
he's
remember it
more
off the top of my
palpable.
mind.
So he's basically more steerable internationally. That's your point, which makes him better than Trump. That's the point of argument here, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, because what you said was political, economic, social. So we haven't touched on social, but I can politically, I think he's more well respected. I mean, he has kind of like come back into agreements with other countries for a
How is
start.
he respected though? He has zero ability to talk, right? He went to UK, he farted on the Duchess's face. Uh, so that's his political track record. He tries to talk to prime minister. I saw this video, I forgot the name. So but like he was talking and he slept. He was sleeping. So that's where sleepy Biden came from, right? So if you realize that, then is that your like that's good? I guess that's the most powerful country in the world. That's the president it has. Well, internationally, like I don't. If I was a political leader, let's say of Australia, right, I would have zero respect for this guy who can't even stay awake in a meeting.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
That's a good politically character. That's what it is required. Yes, Trump was outspoken. Yes, he's worked in hyperboles. He offended a lot of people, but that's okay. You don't need to be affirmative. Being affirmative is not a good thing. Being agreeable is not a good thing because if you have an opinion you will automatically offend someone. That's inevitable, right? But that's the job of the president, right? To have an opinion, prove it, have the facts, and then act upon it. Yes, Trump
But
didn't do the job
I,
well,
I, I
but
don't think
Biden
Trump was in
did
touch with
the
the
job
facts.
well.
Was he? Was he in touch with the facts? I actually think Biden
Yeah,
has a better sense of reality.
Biden, where does he have a better sense of reality? You're giving me a very
He
open
is
wide.
he is he is tackling COVID for a start,
How
rather
is
than
and
going COVID doesn't exist for a
who
start.
who did the vaccines? Whose presidency did the vaccine come under? It was Trump's, right?
Right?
So yes, Trump did a very bad thing at the start where he did the things against masks, and I disagree with them on a lot of the medical viewpoints he has. But at the end of the day, he was right about a lot of things, including blocking the China border, which Biden, by the way, was against. Did you on statement? Biden himself said on statement that he was against that, right? So if you actually understand that, then was Trump wrong? Not really, not
Well,
at
okay,
all.
so the wrong bits that I am concerned about with Trump, I mean, is number one, disregarding medical advice, right? From people like Fauci and so on. I mean, I won't say that he is like,
I
he's like
agree
a
with you.
saint, but
Like
at least
the
he
guy
is a
giving the
doctor.
medical advice has flip flopped so many times on national television, right? Uh, then you put that guy there. That's kind of like what's happening.
But
So
the very fact that he's gone up to say that, COVID doesn't exist, we don't have to care about COVID, it's not serious at all. Also stuff like, well, you should drink, was it bleach or some kind of detergent to get rid of
yeah,
COVID?
that
I'm
was
like,
a real,
look,
that
you are
was
the
a joke,
president. Are you
but
giving
some
medical
people
advice?
took it
Then take
literally,
medical
and
advice.
I took it as a joke. Right? Nobody actually took it seriously, other than the left, who wanted to politicize it and they wanted to bury that. Also, another thing, the problem happening with, I don't like using the word left, but we have to categorize this group. The group here is really difficult to change on the good parts because they will argue on every point. For example, Trump got rid of the affordable care, Obamacare, right? But why did he get rid of it? You have to think about it. Because insurance needed to be sold across state lines. Cost of insurance was very high because of Obamacare, because it forced monopolies. Insurance became a cartel. So that's a really good thing. Now, what does Biden go and do? Just search it up. He wants to kind of have exactly same thing which didn't work and try and do it under a different name. And that's kind of like, that's stupid. That's just pure stupid. Why are you repeating something which has been proven to fail? And that's kind of like what he's doing. Same with like immigration, right? Immigration is a very controversial issue, but at the same time, what you do need to do is, you have to have a really good country, you still have to have a legal skilled immigrants who came and worked their way up. Because my parents were immigrants in Australia, I
Yeah.
respect them for it, because they deserved it. They came here, they did their exams, they worked their way up, they worked 12 hours a day, both of them, for 7 days a week, built their house and came here. I like that type of immigrants. What I do not like is economic immigrants who are just coming to the country for the sake of economic gain, right? Without actually going through the hoops which the other people did, and it's unfair to them. And that kind of policy making, he's basically like, okay, everyone who is undocumented should become legal. Well, that's very interesting. Are you even preserving your sovereignty? Then that's kind of
Well,
like very interesting.
there is, okay. So I don't know whether it's a Biden or a Trump thing at this point, but I've looked into some of these, like arguments around immigrations in the U.S. One, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why they say, they should all be legalized. I mean, firstly, you can't manage a population that is not tracked, and that is a real issue, right? I mean, a lot of this crime and so on, you can't, I mean, simply registering people enable you to better manage them. That was the first issue. Secondly, I think it's very, very difficult administratively to go through, like, okay, who's been actively, contributing to the American economy, who has not, and how do you prove it? How do you
But
prove it,
for
right?
anyone illegal,
And
why
the
do you have
third
to
thing
come
really
illegally?
is,
There is ways to do H1 visa and go through that, right? Why do you have to jump the border fence from Mexico and in such droves of millions and millions of people? Most of these people have been proven they are economic migrants. It's not their lives are under threat, right? So I support completely. It is disingenuous to actual immigrants who are refugees per se, who actually need help from war zones, right? Those people need genuine help instead of having tens of millions of people going in for economic
I
reasons without doing the paperwork.
Okay, so I am not up and up on what's happening in Mexico, but I think that at one point they had a huge problem with drug cartels, and that was when lots and lots of people decided to go to
Yes,
the
that
state.
was ages ago.
I
Now,
I don't think that is economic. I mean, okay, it is economic in a way, but it's
most of
also
it is just search it up. It's a very basic Google search. Don't look at news media, just look at the facts which are presented on the data
Google
gathered
only
through
shows me stuff that's unrelated. I live, you think of
Google
this, I live
Scholar,
half a planet
Google
away. They
Scholar.
don't give me
Go to Google
accurate
Scholar. That's what
information.
I usually like to read. That's why I will not have a too strong of an opinion here. And same with global warming, right? Because you did say Paris Accord. Now that I
Yes.
remember it, that's because the U.S. manufacturing and energy reserves were getting killed. The only during Trump's time, U.S. was oil free, right? Its oil reserve was basically in the positive. It was producing more oil than it was consuming. Now, to people who don't understand it, they will be like, "Oh my God, oil is bad for for the environment and all of that." Yeah, it is. But that at the same time, a country being oil independent, especially when it's a superpower, is very important. And
One,
Biden basically took off on that because he opposed domestic drilling and basically killed the entire scheme which Trump successfully did. He
Wait,
did
hang
it.
on. Weren't
He
they
did the
doing it
oil
by
company.
fracking? That's what I
Yes,
understand. That the US was
yes,
doing it by
yes,
fracking.
and
And
he
fracking is
made
a
it energy
particularly
positive because
difficult.
US would have consumed that much oil anyways. And now guess what's happening? The poor people in US are suffering. You know why? Because they have to pay twice as much for their oil. Even thrice, it will go that level. I don't know what level right now it is. Last I checked, it was twice as expensive. Now who is getting suffering? Because the global cartels will still produce the oil. Now the US basically said, oh no, you know what, because we just want to signal something, we'll
No, but
destroy
there's a
our
couple of
coal.
ways to do oil, and I was given understanding that fracking is a particularly environmentally bad way to get all your oil. That's what
And
I was told. Like drilling is a
so
better way to get it than
so
frack.
it's a human cost, right? So you're basically screwed your bottom half of the population, yet then you can't be a hypocrite and say I support the working class, right? That's really hypocritical of Biden.
Well,
I
I
guess
think it
Trump can
depends
say
on
that
what,
because
like
at
how
least
much is
Trump made the
gasoline
decision for
in
his
effect, right?
people. Yes, oil is
Mm.
needed. You can't just, yeah, our world is transitioning through to EV. I support that, but oil is still needed. Lots of people drive cars on oil. Most people do. Most people can't afford an EV yet. You're basically getting those people to suffer. There are better ways to do it. Like, for example, not tax the oil, subsidize the EVs on the purchase price or tax benefits or something like that, which is not printing money, right? That's a smarter way to do it, and that will automatically incentivize people to not do that, and thus this demand of oil will go down, supply will automatically adjust. But that doesn't mean you just basically put your country on the whims of cartels, and that's what he has done, and it makes me question his political campaign donations a
Well,
lot.
I don't know where okay, so I don't know where green electricity has gone to in the US, but over here, I mean, green electricity is is fairly is accounting for a fair amount of the electricity being produced, right? So I mean, taxing oil is fine if there is alternatives, and why should there not be alternative? I mean, it's economically cheaper now to use alternatives than to use oil in many ways. So unless that's not happening in the states, okay. So to be very frank, I have no idea where it has gone to in the states, right? But that's how we are dealing with it over here. Okay, so while we are, I mean, we've been discussing this for 40 minutes. A couple of you on the online, like, throw your your comments into in throw what you feel into the comments, right? Like, tell us, do you agree with Biden? Do you agree with Trump? I mean, look, whatever your opinion is, just tell us. It doesn't. I mean, you don't have American. I'm not. I think you're Australian. I'm Singaporean. We are like basically talking about stuff that did nothing to do with our country. But tell us how you feel about it. Let me know. Whether you have arguments for or against this. So I mean, back to our conversation, right? Three things, right? You were talking about political, economic, and now social. Socially, do you think that there's more social stability right now? I mean, especially with the fact that COVID seems to be better managed. I mean,
Is
I
there
wouldn't say
social
that.
stability?
I'd say
uh,
that they are more overtly managed, right? Like, he has come up to say that we must manage
so
COVID, we must do something about it.
you do you actually believe that Biden has increased social stability? Because everything would say against that. Look at the self-defense case which happened. I forgot the young man's name, but it was very polarizing in US, and I read a bit about it, and it was a very obvious case of self-defense. Yet the media politicized it. Biden said it, and he should be sued for that because you could see the footage, and he was attacked. He shot the person, and you could see Rittenhouse. It was Rittenhouse's case. So
I wanted to say this, right? Like, no matter how wrong Biden is, I find it difficult to believe that he is more incendiary than Trump. Like, I actually don't know a major world
that's
leader
I think that's the
in like
problem.
recent
Because
memory that's more
I
incendiary
I
than Trump.
hope he was incendiary, like he was like Trump, because at least then he had a character or a personality, and he wasn't just yes man. Right now, it seems like, honestly, as a second person perspective to US, it seems like US is a very weak country in having a president like that, because it signals to me that US is a declining superpower. Because having a strength of character at the helm of a superpower is important, no matter what the political correct opinion might be for that. You need some form of aggression, you need some form of coherence, you need some form of opinion, you need that. And you need that because that makes you non-affirmative, that makes you, they have the ability to confront. And Biden seems to lack on all these fronts. And that's why, in general, on the social aspect, I just think he's a disaster of a president in actually giving US, because we have to see from US perspective what's good for the US, right? You're thinking from the world perspective.
No, I am thinking from the world's perspective. That's from my
I
perspective.
know what you're thinking
I
from, and
agree.
oh yeah, I'm like, okay, fine, doesn't matter. US will decline as a superpower, but this is a very interesting signal, and it has done that. It has lost its soft power a lot. And China's economy has grown bigger than US GDP. China's agenda on quantum computing is ahead of US in research publications, in almost every single metric, education, IQ, anything you take.
But is
And
that really Trump's fault? I mean, I'm sorry, Biden's fault. He's only been here a year. Trump has been there 4 years. And I would say that Trump
that's
has
the
done a lot
issue.
to
He
weaken the
has
US.
been here for a year and he has done so much. He has done the same amount of mess ups Trump has probably done in his entire politics, right? So if you actually look at Trump's presidency, right, take out the impeachments, take out all those issues which are not significantly impacting the country for the next 20 years.
Like actually incendiaring people, like, inciting people
That's all
against
right.
COVID and
That's
against
okay.
race. Are you
That's all
sure you
right.
could take that out?
Yes, that happens. People get offended, they riot, right? Happens. Take all of that stuff out and just leave the actual economic policy and the social constructs which they have put in place, like the judges they have, for example, Trump elected and so on, and then just wait out, play it out in the next 20 years, what the impact will be. Well, Trump's policy, the impact would be in the middle somewhere. It wouldn't be that good as the best president in the United States. It wouldn't be that bad as the worst. It would be somewhere in the middle, solid middle. So he's not the best, he's not the worst either. I can make a good argument again for Nixon there.
Okay,
So
make it like tell me why you think he's in the solid middle. Okay, like leaving aside Biden, right, which you obviously don't like. I mean, like who else? Like, tell me what are the people that will fall under Trump?
because I think people have short summaries of memories. I would just personally go with Nixon because he was a complete
Okay,
disaster through and through, and we can
right?
both agree
Okay,
on that. Then
yes.
you go into George Bush, his second term, started a $1 trillion war, which we are still suffering from.
Okay.
You can put it under Trump very fairly, and then you have a few other presidents like that throughout U.S. history, and you start to realize Trump's not that bad. So
Well, I mean, Bush had an excuse, right? I mean, he had nine
what
eleven.
was his excuse?
9/11, 9/11. Do you remember that?
Okay, why invade countries where you couldn't even associate the terrorists from? The terrorists are in Pakistan. If you had to invade a country, go invade Pakistan. But I wouldn't recommend that. You shouldn't do that. But like that might have made more logical sense. Then what did you get out of Afghanistan? What was it? You just destabilized the Middle East. You caused so many concerns because you thought that democracy would work, and yet you had no plan to make it work. You had no, because how they went into Afghanistan, and Biden actually said this publicly. He admitted to that, and he voted for this war. By the way, he is on record for voting for this war. So he said it publicly, and that was a really stupid misstep. He admitted that Afghanistan, we weren't there to rebuild the country. So he admitted that we weren't there for the betterment of Afghanistan. So what were they for there for? Just to destroy it?
Didn't they start with Iraq? I mean, look, I do
Yeah, they
remember. I mean,
started
I'm
with
old
Iraq.
enough to remember the second
Biden
Bush,
voted
even
for
the
that.
first. Is it? Didn't they
What
start with
happened to
they
Iraq?
started
Where
with
is
Iraq,
Iraq
right?
now? What happened to
Then
Iraq?
Afghanistan,
Yeah,
right?
what happened to Iraq? Where is it now? Right? So they thought that they could do it. They thought that he killed the dictator. Then what? Well, they profited a lot from these wars, right? The right people, and you can trace the money, and you can see why that happened. Same with Gaddafi when they overthrew it. It's a mess of a country right now. And yeah, I don't support dictators, but at the end, sometimes Chinese style government is effective in some certain cases because the populace can be extreme, and that's a
You
statistical.
should talk to my husband for support of Chinese style. Like we are like forever going like, no, that's a dictatorship, and he's like, no, dictatorships are good, right? So that's why you need to.
Dictatorships aren't good.
It's
Dictatorships
another
aren't good.
argument that I have already daily. Yes.
Dictatorships aren't good. I dislike dictatorships, and I'm completely against CCP and their agenda. Because I think that it was really good when they took 900 million people out. It was needed. It was an economic miracle. But now they have just basically started diverting their focus, and the way they're doing it with the Uyghurs and so on is not good. But at the end of the day, what he has done is, okay, you have overhauled the dictator like you did in Vietnam. What now, right? And that Biden was involved in that decision making, and then he went to Afghanistan, he created a war, and he admitted on public record that Afghanistan wasn't about helping Afghanistan at all. Well, okay, then what were you doing there? If you had no proof that Osama was there, you sent your military personnel there, yeah, he ran off from there, then you should have gotten out of the country, right? Because he's not there anymore. You didn't. You
Right.
wanted
Right.
to do whatever you wanted to do, and then you left it as a disaster. You never considered to actually build that country. So let's look from your world perspective. What has Biden done throughout his political career? Even now, he did the exact same thing. He
Well,
destroyed an entire
I
country.
will be fair and tell you that I did not review his entire political career. I'm purely comparing his presidency to
Yes,
that of
but
Trump.
his current political decision makings are just a follow up of his previous political career, right? He's just acting the same. He hasn't changed.
Okay, so yes, um, this is something that's come in. He says that not only in the states, you don't pay taxes, you listen to us posture as an all-knowing expert. This dialogue is painful. We are wilding out like opinions, translate to facts. So let's discuss American politics. We can't vote in US. You can spoil propaganda with a sociopathic delusion, and no wonder 5 people have watched this. Yes.
Well, that's
So
because US
uh,
is a superpower and US is
well,
responsible.
okay. So to be very frank with you, let me put it this way, and I will say this up front. This is my show. I really am not trying to express any opinion on American politics. As you have rightly pointed out, it's got nothing to do with me. What I am trying to do is very simple, which is I think with social media, there's a great tendency to only listen to what we already agree with. And that is something that is polarizing the world. So, what I'm trying to do is very, very simple, which is my opinion is that, I don't like, sorry, repeat, please. To repeat, you want me to repeat? Yeah, sure. Okay. So, I said that on social media, and actually, even on Google, they only show you the search results for the opinions that you already agree with. I mean, so I will be shown the stuff that I already agree with. Okay. And my purpose in doing all of these is really got nothing to do with American politics. I mean, honestly, if you're offended, I apologize. But my opinion is the whole exercise is very simple, which is my opinion is very low of Trump. That I will really admit. I mean, my opinion is very low of Trump, and he, oh, Abhishek has a much higher opinion of it. And my whole purpose in doing this is just to bring multiple perspectives into view, right? I mean, these are all our opinions. Yes, they are based on kind of facts. Again, like we have also talked about, can we argue about the facts? Can we trust CNN? Can we trust these people? Yes. So that's one of the things is, yeah. So that's one of the things is I would like to think about, can I change my opinion? Um, and is there a confirmational bias? Exactly. So I want to know. And I think I want to know what is out there on the other side, right? I want to know what the people who truly are, I mean, supporting Trump think about, what is their opinion, why is it that they feel like Abhishek does, that it is not very, that he's not very bad and so forth, right? So that's really my point. I mean, honestly, it's got nothing to do with American politics. Next week I'm talking about teenage pregnancy, young people and depression. And what it is yeah, my, his, and two people watching. Yes. So
Yes.
I agree that today there wasn't many people coming, and I mean nobody has voiced an opinion. Thank you for your opinion, actually. And it is my and his opinion, and I actually would love to hear your opinion. I mean, you know, if you don't feel that this is something that we should be talking about, and you don't feel that we're experts, we are not experts, by the way. We're not. Okay.
Yes.
We are purely talking about it just because I would really love to change my opinion about it. I would love to hear what he has said, and I agree with you. I mean, if you don't feel that this is moderate perspective, what is your perspective? Tell us. What do you feel is the perspective, right?
Yes,
And
and
I
from
would
my
love to hear
side,
it from you.
to
Yeah.
me, US politics is very relevant because I do a global business, and what I'm doing is making eye care basically free for everyone in a sense, and that involves especially US because US people are suffering from this. They pay a lot of cost on eyeglasses and so on. So having a sarcastic view on that is not, I think, a good point of debate. Well, US in itself claim to be the global police, and in a global business where I have to do business in US, yes, I do care a lot about the politics going on there and who is in charge, because it directly affects how well I could actually help people. And
Okay. So I was just going to say I wasn't laughing at you. This has come by, and I'm backpedaling. That might be no. My whole purpose is like correct my opinion. Let me know, right? Like if you
not
feel
making
that my
healthcare
opinion
free
is
for
crazy, let
all.
me know.
I
Yeah.
care eye prescriptions because I think that's a ripoff in US. Here in Australia, we get to enjoy a quality of care which the US people aren't getting, and they're getting stripped off on the eyeglasses and so on. That's why I entered this business, because I invented some technologies which could fix that with the help of ophthalmologists, and we're just trying to roll it out. But that it still comes, politics does affect business, especially when you're trying to do it at such a large scale.
Okay. All right. I
I
mean,
Well, I think, Serene, we should ignore this guy because I don't want to waste my time on
yeah,
people like
sure,
that. Because
no problem.
if the basic fact can't be established that US is relevant, well then okay, fine, US is not relevant. Well, okay, then it's not a superpower. Then
Yeah,
stop
but
claiming yourself relevant on the global stage.
I will say this, right? I mean, I started this basically because of this. I mean, I think I will take any opinion seriously.
Yeah,
And
so
the
but
thing is,
I don't agree with you there, because I think
yeah,
some opinions you just see, you ignore, and you move on, because everyone has an opinion. And while I have my opinion has changed a lot. I used to
yes.
be a stronger supporter of Trump. Now I say, like, look, he has had his flaws. So I've actually become less supportive of Trump over his presidency, especially. It was very interesting. So that's kind of same with you, I guess. You were very non-supportive of you were probably very supportive of Biden when he came into
Well, I
presidency.
mean, I wasn't very supportive of Biden, but I was more supportive than Trump. That's for sure. But I think that when you look at it, I will say this, right? That um, how would I say this? I will say that when you put it in perspective of like all the worst presidents in the past, I will say that yeah, actually that is true, right? He isn't like the worst. And I mean, in
He isn't
answer
the
to
best
you,
either.
I will say this, right? I've been doing this work with constructive arguments for 2 years. And to me, it's not really so much whether I have a huge audience or not. For me, this is a work that I hope to do because I think I want to change my opinions and I want people to hear different things. If you feel that that's not something that's relevant to you, I respect that. It's fine.
So this is
And
Serene.
I feel that's something.
From my side, Serene, I'll basically say why I'm even here is I'm here as a guest because this topic interests me. And while I do not have the exact facts lined up, from my I do watch a lot of news and digest it and all of that. So to me, it was really concerning the landscape in US. And again, from a business perspective, it's actually scary for me to enter the US market at this stage. I'm still going to, because it's going to basically be a good strategy to do it. But the landscape in United States is not good for global business and people who want to actually do. And a lot of US entrepreneurs are immigrants, believe it or not. And that's a fact you have to live by. If especially if this commentator is from US. And again,
No,
I'm not
I don't think he is. I think he has said that he doesn't live in the states and he doesn't pay taxes. And these are his opinions. And I agree. I mean, I don't think that I'm doing this because I want a huge audience. I think there are better topics to pick if I want a huge audience. But I think to me it's really about listening, I will say this, like at the end of this conversation, I don't know whether I managed to convince you about Biden, but I will say that you have changed my mind about, how far, like when we say Trump is bad, how bad is Trump really? And what is, in the grand scheme of things, right? Like all these other past presidents, like if you compare to, like you said, Richard, George Bush, and so on, is it like possibly, is he the worst of the worst? So I think that's really something new. I mean, it's something that I've not thought of, right? It's something new. And as to whether these new policies that Biden has signed in, whether it be the COVID one, whether it be the infrastructure one, how it's been implemented, whether it be implemented the way that Afghanistan was, like you said, I don't know, right? Okay, so on paper they all look good. In reality, would they end up being the same disaster as Afghanistan? Again, I don't know, right?
And
But
even
that's really something that I've thought differently. And I mean, that's something I thank you for that.
yes, I
Yes.
think the entire point of this show is meant to be opinionated. At least that's what the agenda is, that we have to be very opinionated, because otherwise,
No,
if
but
you're not
I
opinionated,
also I also appreciate that the guy who's just come on and like talking is talking to us, right? I mean, look, come on, talk to us. It's fine. I don't, like I said, I think if I wanted to shy away from people thinking that I'm doing an idiot thing, I wouldn't be doing this thing. So it's meant to be confrontational, and I respect the fact that you don't think we should be talking about it. I agree. We're not experts. I totally agree. We are not totally based on facts. Agree. A lot of this is our opinions. I agree as well. But the whole idea is I would like to bring different opinions to the table, and I would like to just talk about it and think about it. I mean, I this is something that I agree. Okay,
that's
so yes,
uh,
what are my goals then? No outline, no gender, speak on topics. Well, okay.
well,
So what
that's
my
what a
agenda is
lot
very
of
simple, and I mean, look, in fairness to my guest, I invited him on because he has an opinion that I feel could change mine. So I didn't invite him on to change his opinion. That's to be. I mean, let's be fair here, right? So also, what is my agenda? Very simple, right? I want to I want to talk about an issue. I want to look at the other viewpoint, and I want to hear what somebody else who strongly believes in something else is. And that's basically it. That's the sum of my agenda. I don't have anything more structured than that. But thank you very much. I appreciate you for being here. I mean, it's an hour. Let me just I mean, if you have anything else that if I have anything else that you want to tell us. But Abhishek, is there something that you want to say in conclusion to this?
My conclusion is I think that both presidents are a disaster, but still, I believe Trump was a better option. But from the perspective of a business person, to me, U.S. environment, because of all this policy making and these decision makings under Biden, has been unfavorable to consider as the first option of being an entrepreneur there. And that from that consideration, I did personally I make an active choice to go to London over New York, and that active choice was based upon the political landscape and the landscape of the policies coming in, and especially on behalf of Elon Musk, who I really look up to, right, as a business leader, because he's contributed a lot to our society. The way he's being treated in the US kind of sets a really scary example for us to even try and do that, because he is obviously like a really smart person. And to me, if I was the president, I would basically be trying to protect him as much as I can, because he's really needed, and yet people are turning against him. So that kind of tells me the mindset of the United States and what's happening in there. So that's kind of something which I feel really strongly about. At the end of the day, I did not know about that, what you have mentioned, the poverty cut proposal. I do still think handing money to people doesn't work in the long term, but in the short term, because a lot of people have lost their jobs, it actually might be effective. So we just need to see on the execution of that. So that might actually change my opinion a bit about Biden if it actually helps, but I'm still really
Hmm.
skeptical on that.
Okay.
What
All
about
right.
your
So,
remarks?
well, like I said, I mean, two things. One is when you consider Trump in the context of all the U.S. presidents, I think I'm inclined to agree with you. He's not the worst that we have seen. I mean, that much I definitely do agree, and I think that has given me a revised opinion of Trump. I think, to be very fair, I will say this, that a lot of my opinion is influenced by the Simpsons. I apologize to those of you who are Trump supporters, but yes. So I think that when I put that in the context, that's something else. The other thing that I would also say is this, right, which is that when I look at some of these policies, so I come from a country where a lot of policies are implemented as is, okay, and I think I don't have the same sense of, oh, okay, so that's what it says on paper, and White House cannot be trusted, and who knows whether they will actually do it or not, right? So that's something that I think that I probably will take going forward, because I think I do have a lot of trust in authority. I have a lot of trust in my government. And I do kind of think that if they say they're going to do it, they would, right? So that's something, I think, a perspective that I didn't have before. Okay, so I appreciate that. And to Amber as well, who's been speaking to us, thank you very much for coming by. I'm not sure if this would interest you enough for you to come by another day. I do this every week, just on different topics. Next week, we're talking about whether depression is the state that we should be in young persons. And so I think that, this is something that I would love to continue doing. And I think if you want to continue the conversation with me, I would love to continue the conversation with you. If you have ideas as to what you think can improve these sessions, make them more interesting, by all means, let me know. Okay. So thank you very much. Thanks to Abhishek. Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it. As well as Amber, and those of you who are listening to me. I mean, the few of you who are listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I'll
Serene.
see you
It was
guys
a
next week.
pleasure.
Yes, next week.
Yes.
See ya.
Cheers.
Cheers.